Well, to everybody joining us, we're about to get started, but I just wanted to take a second to thank our generous sponsor, Genentech, for helping to support this program for this year's LGBTQ plus Pride Month 2025. So with that, we can now get started. I will stop sharing and stop hiding behind my laptop. Okay. All right. So, to everybody joining us, thank you so much. And welcome to today's conference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Today's educational program is in honor of National Pride Month and has been made possible with support from Genentech. I'm your host and your moderator, Bhavya Suri. I'm the health educator and the editor at MS Focus. And I'm joined today by a wonderful panel of individuals from the MS and LGBTQIA plus community. So welcome to Nick Overton, River Andreas, and Christine Venrick. We're so happy to have you with us today. And if you guys would love to, just take a minute and introduce yourselves. And we'll start with you, Nick.
Yes. Thank you, Bhavia. Hi, my name is Nick Overton. I identify as a trans man. My pronouns are he, him, and I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, relapsing remitting MS in January 2023. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Whoever wants to go next.
Hi, I'm Christine Venrick. I'll do it. I got it. Hi, I'm Christine Venrick. I'm 48-ish something years old, Gen Xer. Also, I think I've had MS since I was about 9-ish. So what we would call probably juvenile back then. And I am so happy to be here. And thank you for having us. And it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And River.
I'm River. I'm 29. I got diagnosed about 2 years ago, not quite 2 years. Happy to be here. Been a long 2 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And muted. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for introducing yourselves. So we'll just get started. I'll ask a question and then we can just have a discussion about it and we'll move on to the next question when it is time. So let's start with, can each of you share how your MS diagnosis intersected with your LGBTQ plus identity? And we'll just start with who's on my screen first, which is Nick.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question, Bhavia. Getting diagnosed with MS as a trans man really added layers to my experience with MS, right? Especially as being a trans man that's on hormones. There were days I felt like I had to educate my care team about both MS and my identity, especially, being in a rural area where not a lot of people at the local hospital truly understand those intersecting identities. All while trying to access, all while trying to process a life-altering diagnosis. So it felt overwhelming at the time, right? And that was when, I kind of got online and tried to understand more about MS and being trans, and I found the lack of research surrounding that and the lack of support surrounding that. That's how it has directly intersected my identity.
And do you mind sharing? You said rural area, so what area do you live in?
Yeah, I live in Florida, and it's a very rural area where I'm at. So the access to, especially to neuroimmune care, is
Mhm.
non-existent in this area. Um, so it was always a hurdle. And I also, you just going back to having questions about, hormones can affect MS in so many drastic ways, and not having the research and and the dynamics to understand it directly how it affects trans people, and
Mhm.
in my sense was, it was heartbreaking, to be honest.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Christine, you're just next on my screen.
It's okay. I will probably say that I'm a late life general studies major. And so I learned a lot of things about many things, but nothing completely. And until I was a parent. And my child at the time, um, really allowed me to understand what their world is like, especially around medical care, especially around identity, especially around diseases, dilemmas, disorders, right? Triple Ds, we all have them, whether we want them or not. Let's just, however, that part of parenthood and the things that I had encountered um, in a very small community. Also, I grew up in the Midwest for 20 years and then traveled to the South for 20 years. I went to the East Coast for about 5 and came back into Alabama. So, and it has been a very large, large part of finding care that not understands gender and its identities as well as a million other things, but also compassionate, well-rounded care for human beings that
Mhm.
have a disease, not just the human body that is what someone else thinks of it. And everyone should have the same care to that. So those are things that have opened up my eyes.
I absolutely agree, especially about the compassion and needing it for a human being rather than looking at it as just a scientific body to treat.
Mhm.
River?
Um, Mostly it's intersected in care. Like when I got top surgery, they were like, what do we need to be more cautious about? You might have to stay overnight and just in case like you're not regulating temperature, because that's a really big thing for me is not being able to regulate. Um, though I did have a little bit right when I first was in the process of getting diagnosed, when they asked how long I'd been on testosterone and were contemplating if like maybe that was the cause. I They did not make me stop it, which is fantastic, but there was a little bit of a question there. But I've had, for the most part, my care team has been amazing with at least knowing that they don't know enough about it to say anything for sure about it, which, depending on the doctor, is really the best you can ask, is to not get unwanted opinions.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's better if a physician can say, I'm not sure, but let me look into that for you rather than just giving you
yeah,
a biased answer or an answer without the proper training and knowledge. I think that goes a long way and it speaks to not only the physician, but the ethical standpoint of it as well. So I
yeah.
completely agree. Anything, Christine or Nick, you want to add to that?
I
Um,
love the fact that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick.
no, I saw that River touch bases on, um, providers, maybe perhaps thinking it may be linked to MS. And this is not the first trans person I've heard bring that up, which is, being a nurse myself, it's kind of alarming to me that the providers aren't doing the education and just automatically saying something like that to their trans patients, um, and it can directly affect someone's life drastically. Trans people are, more likely for suicide and mental health issues. And, making the decision to take someone off their hormone therapy um, without, valid scientific information to back it up can be potentially harming. I just
Mhm.
wanted to add that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I I agree. I mean, I know I keep saying I agree, but I genuinely do agree. So building off of that, then I'd like to ask if you said assumptions and possibly biases as well. So have any of you personally encountered any assumptions or biases in medical settings related to your identity?
Yes, absolutely. I've had different assumptions based on my body. After being on hormones, your body changes.
Mhm.
And so I've had different assumptions based on that when I've asked for care surrounding issues that I've had going on with my bottom half relating to MS. And I've just had assumptions surrounding that. I've also dealt with different biases. I've dealt with people misgendering me, also dealt with overhearing nurses talk about me, which was very alarming, you know. Um, yeah, I also had someone, you know, get very unprofessional in the ER once in the waiting room, where, every patient there could overhear this person, misgendering me. And yeah, it was very inappropriate, very alarming that the healthcare system is doing these
Mm.
type of things. Um, but yeah, that's what I've had to deal with personally.
Well, Christine or River, I'd love to hear your input.
I will add
Um,
before you move on. Sorry. There was something that my therapist said to me one time that kind of stuck, and she said to me, "It must be completely exhausting to just exist." And that was something that stuck with me for a very, very long time. And yeah, sorry, River. Go ahead.
I relate to that so hard. Existing is so exhausting just as a whole. Um, but I back to the question, really the only significant time that sticks out is when I first started HRT, and this was before I got diagnosed with MS and still was doing relatively well health wise. Um, but the doctor at the Planned Parenthood uh, would get the correct name because they didn't have any other name on file, um, but would consistently use the wrong pronouns. And I later learned from a friend who worked at the same clinic that she did that with every single trans person. And if my previous name had been on file, there's a good chance I would have been called that by her. And that was not a great feeling knowing that, but also like knowing that she was doing it to other people as well made it feel not as personal, which a little bit of a bright side, I guess. It wasn't anything against me in particular, but
I like River and Nick that the fact that names matter and everyone to acknowledge that names matter to your identity, whether it's with gender or any other way that you see yourself, names matter and respect matters. And I think, as all of us know, it is not if, it is when something happens to us. And sometimes the
Mhm.
only kindness we see is in our own communals or communities, people that get it. And we're always looking for those
Mhm.
that get it, that are kindest to land with, or most likely to defer with dark humor. I know nothing about that. Nothing. Um,
Yeah.
but all of those things to make us feel human. And anything that strips
Mhm.
us or makes us less than that is always the most alarming part, because we are nothing but the less of us. We are nothing but the least of us. And if one of us gets care that is lackluster, all of us get care that is lackluster. And the bar should be raised so high to be taught that inclusivity is an absolute requirement in a disease that is so non exclusive.
Mhm.
So when we have a better understanding of, if my hormone levels or anyone else's gave me MS, I'll be happy to fight a fight. But until then, it was Epstein Barr. It was
Yeah.
something else. It was my grandparents. It has nothing to do with those things for me. Every person deserves care and treatment. It should be with respect. And that is the basic premise for all of us. I believe no matter
Mhm.
the reaching of all of us can agree that that needs to be fair and equitable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I totally agree.
I will ask this. Nick, you brought up the point, which I love that your therapist said that and acknowledged that feeling of it must be so exhausting to just exist every day. How do you, each of you, cope with not only that mental exhaustion and the emotional exhaustion that comes with that, but trying to advocate that and your MS at the same time?
Um, it's hard. First therapy, right? That was my first line of handling but also like kind of leaning into my nurse background. I really use my knowledge to assert boundaries with my team. I use it as an opportunity to educate providers when necessary, and yeah, it was hard. But leaning into that and leaning into the support that I had around me, the support groups I had around me, that definitely helped. Um, Also finding meaning in advocacy, because I had to step down from nursing due to my MS. And so finding just that calling and advocacy that I felt missing in nursing. And so I started advocating towards individuals that have MS, and especially with LGBTQ individuals, because I saw the lack of resources for us. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I got through it.
Thank you for sharing
For
that. And I'll open it up to the other two lovely panelists as well.
for me, it's definitely like been therapy. Um, and unfortunately, I'm no longer able to see this therapist because I've moved, but she had a relative with MS, so she understood, and not from a personal perspective, which is totally fine, but like she knew what it was like living
Mm.
day to day, like just knowing like what could happen and all of that. Um, so that was really helpful and valuable, like the first couple of years. Um, but also like all of my social group, all of my friends, the people I work with are all chronically ill. Like it's so everyone is able to understand to an extent.
Mhm.
And that's also been really helpful to be able to be like, I need to not get out of bed today because everything hurts and I cannot exist. And have
Mhm.
everyone go like, yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll rearrange whatever we need to make that happen. That's been amazing.
Compassion for me, trauma work, PTSD work, and a lot of honesty. I came into MS. I'm a little bit longer in the tooth. I'm of the crab only generation. So for all you youngins with the new fancy schmancy meds, um, we had roids and a whole bunch of stuff that now we're going, oh yeah, that looks scary. Um, I think that I had to do a lot of forgiving of myself also for the grief I encountered, not only when I had MS, but also when my life and my truths became very evident to myself. And I became who I was really hiding from. And, a lot of us, we struggle with addictions, we struggle with connection, we struggle with even body dysmorphia because our bodies are attacking itself. The one of the silliest diseases I think I've ever heard of is multiple sclerosis. It is literally eating the thing that's keeping you working. And I have to remind myself of that I am in spite of being all of these things, all of these letters now after my name that look like doctors, but really they're just diagnoses, that I matter and I have worth and value. And my job as an OG-ish, crab OG, is to make sure that my voice, because of my privilege or access to communities, lets everyone be heard. And I think that is one of the give backs of generational trauma work, is to know how hard it is on the way up because you just survived it. And I'm grateful to be here. And I'm happy to pave a way or open a gate for someone that needs to that gate to be open. We don't deserve keys. We deserve information.
This was all very beautifully said. I try to hold back tears. So just I am holding them back now too.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
this was very lovely. But to that point, I'm asking, what advice would you give to somebody who is newly diagnosed and still, Christine, you mentioned grief, right? So they were grieving the body that they once had. Um,
Mm.
and now not only are they grieving what MS took away from them, but they're also in the midst of figuring out exactly who their identity is while
Right.
carrying this grief.
Fun fact, your brain does not actually fully develop until you're 26. I
Mhm.
don't know about y'all, but my activation date was way before 26. So there's a lot of things that are not your fault. Things that are not your fault. One is genetics. You have nothing to do with it. You can blame it on your parents. You're welcome. That's therapy. I'm not certified though. Okay. Just that's a freebie for you. Also, read. Read everything. Read anything. Don't judge it. Just absorb it because the truth will come out. You'll form your own questions and understand that your history matters. Every scan, every note, every time that's a word is an opportunity for you to learn about yourself, your identity, your care, and what you will need as you face the good life, not just a bad death. We will face a good death in this. And most of us just need to learn how to be alive while we're grieving. It's very difficult, but you'll do it. Newbies will get it. You're a monster slayer. Okay, that's what we are. Monster slayers. Never forget it.
Yeah.
Judge it, just absorb it. We are.
Yeah, well said, Christine. I just want to add, to anyone listening, you are not alone. Um, you know, find your people, trust your instincts, and know that being part of the LGBTQ plus community is not a barrier to healing. It's your strength, and your story matters. Tell your story. You know, one of my passions has always been, LGBTQ and advocacy, and leaning into that truly helped me. Find what helps you. You know, don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, to advocate for yourself, and like Christine said, learn everything that you can know. That is your strength. That's your power. Even as a nurse, I went into my garage and opened my old nursing books. And I asked a doctor friend of mine, because I had so many barriers with my care and finding out like what my MRI results were and all this other stuff. It was, with my local hospital, that I went and bought a MRI book that neurologists usually use in school off Amazon to start looking at it myself. I started to learn to read my scans myself, to be honest.
That's
And that was one of my barriers that I had to overcome. I would say when around I've been diagnosed for 2 years now, about a year of it were, doctors like not going over my scans with me, which was, um, yeah, it was mind blowing. But not to change the subject, I'm going off topic, but
you're good.
you are your
You're good.
greatest advocate. Please don't forget that.
What was the first book that any of y'all got for MS? Did anybody go? My first book was MS for Dummies. That is how aged I will date myself, is MS for Dummies. Okay. That's how little we knew. And that's how much we have had to learn. And that is with each one of our stories. Go be your own unicorn, right? Go find what makes you special and stick to it. River, your turn.
Um, let yourself cry if you need to, because so many of us are taught in society that crying is weakness and you can't show emotion and grieve openly. Let yourself feel those feelings, but also find the good things and the beautiful things in your life, like your favorite food or a movie you really like go outside and just sit in the sunlight if that's something you enjoy, and find the good things too, but don't have all of the good to suppress the bad. Like let that exist as well, because you can't have one without the other. And find outside support, a therapist, other people who know what you're going through. Find outside support. Don't have all of your support be internal or like your partner, family. Like find other people as well. Community is so helpful and so important dealing with things like this.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed that last sentence where you said, take the good and the bad, because you have to balance both. Otherwise, without the
Mhm.
bad, you won't form that sense of resilience. And without the good, you won't be able to have that joy still in your life. So, with that, I ask, how do each of you find joy in just everyday living?
Okay, I'll
Um,
go. Oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead,
Oh,
Christine.
you
Go
want
ahead.
me this one? Thanks so much, Nick. I appreciate that. Nick and I are friends, by the way. So we can harass each other a little bit. Joy to me is when someone gets something called a boop. And a boop is a piece of information that can come along and hit you in your body with a 2x4, or simply just come up to you with a little fairy wand, go boop on your nose and laugh and giggle and walk away. I love when people learn truths about themselves and are not afraid to have two truths. You can have joy and still have sadness. You have a lot of ranges of emotions between those, and you might not even know the names of those. So when you look up joy, also understand that joy is as happy and joy are just emotions. They come and go. It is how you practice your life that will really figure out, what do you want? What is your quality that you want? Who do you want to be? Because MS is not going to stand in your way of who you're being. It's standing in the way of who you might have become. Now you are who you are. Go make the most of it.
Very well put.
Absolutely. Yeah, and sorry. I just want to say, I literally had to redefine joy for myself because what I found in, joy in before truly changed. And not in a bad way, you know? It may seem like that at first, but I rediscovered who I was within this disease. So, with the music, as spiritual practices, meditation, journaling, my emotions really helped in the beginning, and even now on my bad days. Yesterday was one of, if not the worst day since I've been diagnosed, to be
Mhm.
honest. And you know, being with people who see me fully, I think, um, that truly helps me. Um,
I'm sorry.
Keep going.
MS can feel like it takes so much from us at times, for me specifically, right? It felt like it took nursing from me. It felt like it took, um, you know, my means of income, right? Um, which my self identity was so enmeshed in nursing and what I used to do with humanitarian work that I did become depressed after that. Just it was a hard time, but again, utilizing things that help you. Music really helped me. Being able to use guitar to really dive into like neuroplasticity, retraining my brain a little bit, learning guitar, doing something difficult, right? um that really, it helped bring me joy because I see the progress and I'm like, gives me that hope, not to give up, keep fighting, keep going, keep being that person that even I just wrote an article for the MS Foundations magazine, and strangely enough, I went to my see my neurologist in the at UF a couple weeks ago, and it was on their table in their office. And in that moment, it shocked me, and I was like, it was like a oh my god moment. This is in many neurology offices across the planet, or well, the US. But it was like, my goodness, if this story can just help that one person, you
Mhm.
know, and I find joy in that. I truly do. I find joy in that. So,
River, do you have anything to add?
Um, I find a lot of joy in cooking, like cooking really good, healthy food. Um, being able to be experimental with that. Um, especially because for a while there, after being diagnosed, I
Mhm.
didn't know if I'd be able to again. Um, little bit of context, I lost sight in both eyes for about 2 months, so I couldn't
Mm.
see to cook. Would have had to entirely teach myself how to cook in a new way. Um, Thankfully, I got all of my sight back. I'm just light sensitive. Um, but that really changed how I looked at a lot of things, like being able to read or do photography, both of which I love to do. And, you know, just spending time with the people in my life, but having those really deep conversations, things like that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, Nick, you mentioned something interesting, and Christine, you touched on it too. So, physicians nowadays, there may not be as much training in terms of inclusiveness of uh, not only a person, but a person and a disease, and trying to understand. And River, you touched on it too about pronouns and ensuring that they're being called appropriately. How do you advocate for yourself with whatever background you have? Like Nick, you mentioned nursing. How are you able to advocate without overstepping or coming across as I'm showing you, I'm trying to show you how to respect me without showing you how to do your job to any healthcare provider that is treating you?
Oh, I'm the wrong one to answer that one. I am the
No, there's
wrong one. Oh, I
um,
wear neurologists like I wear shoes. That is my biggest thing, is that my neurologist, as lucky as they are to be on my feet, if they do not fit, they're going to be returned. That goes with their staff. That goes with anyone who answers the phone funny. That goes with anybody who can't take my records. Those things matter, and they matter to all of us. I think that is a very important part of that as well. Nick, I know you had something, but I will fight somebody in the office, and I bring in all of my 72-page medical files since birth. That's how I fight and advocate for myself, is to know what I know what I have in front of me, and know that you might be able to beat me in a race, but you cannot beat my information and my data.
That's a great answer.
yeah,
That's not a wrong answer.
um, yeah, Christine, spot on as always, right? Sometimes you do have to find a new provider, and it's okay to find a new provider. I went through two neurologists before I found a good one, right? That was willing to listen to me. Um, and it can be hard. Can say simply things like, I need you to respect my pronouns, simple as that. It's very direct, but I think at certain moments you need to be very direct when you're advocating for your health. And especially when it comes down to like neuroimmune diseases that are life changing to the individual. Several times I've just been completely ignored by physicians and under, crucial moments that could have, directly affected, my the extent of my disease for the rest of my life. So yeah, again, and Bobby, I know I said before I went into my nursing background, I educated myself. I did that. You know, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of that was how I advocated for myself. Um, and don't be scared to ask questions, right? Um,
Ask the
I had
questions you want the answers to, though, not the ones that you think you want the answers to. Take the questions you write with you, okay? Because you will get lost in there. And I love what Nick is talking about, really, in the questions. It's how do you ask it if you've never had access to it, if you're denied access to it too. How does someone translate neurologist into a 19-year-old, right? Not that's facing a major life change. I bet struggling maybe with their identity in life, and then talking to authority figures in pain. We're all in pain. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter or whatever you have hanging or not. We're in pain. And it seems to be the dismissal and the gaslighting and the Darvo and the tactics that are used in narcissistic abuse are also used and employed in medical care. And a lot of us, I've been around for a while. I have a reputation for telling doctors that they have it wrong. And that is not to be a smarty pants, but that is also you put your pants on one leg like I do, but if you fall over, do you have MS too? Do I get to question everything that you do if you have a disease, even though you have the knowledge? How does that take away from our ability to be able and be seen at the same time by professionals, not our peers, but the people who are in charge of the chemicals that go into us? That is a pretty powerful people. And if they don't believe that you have a right to exist or you shouldn't have the same rights, then really, should they have access to your care? That's
yeah,
advocacy. Sorry,
yeah.
Nick, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. When you have to say something, please do. I forgot where I was going with that, but it reminded me of like one my first MS specialist, which was an absolutely horrible experience in my
You remember
life.
your first MS specialist.
But you know, I knew in that moment that I needed to change doctors when she said to me, you're going to be in a wheelchair in 10 years. I knew in that moment, like, I want someone that's going to fight for me as hard as I want to fight for myself. And in that moment, I felt like my doctor had already given up on me,
Yeah.
and like when I asked her to explain, like, my brain scan, she just said, oh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And it's like, what is that to say to a patient, right? And it's like in those moments, like as someone that was still dealing with a super new diagnosis, um, and as a nurse, looking at it that way, it makes you just kind of go down these rabbit holes. So like, what is my life going to be like for the rest of my life? Um, but again, thankfully, I'm with a team now that is um, spectacular, to say the least. Um, but yeah, it was intense, But advocacy is huge. Speak up for yourself. Um, that particular doctor, I ended up finding out from a colleague was just upset that I questioned her diagnosis, which was MS at the time, because the radiology report suggested that my lesions looked more like an NMOSD than an MS. So I wanted additional tests run, and she was upset at that. So, yeah, just advocate for yourself. Be your biggest advocate. Learn as much as you can about the disease, and don't give up fighting. Um, yeah.
River, I want to give you a chance to also um,
Um,
give your input.
so I actually haven't ever really needed to do a lot of advocating for myself. Um, all of the doctors that I've seen, barring the one at Planned Parenthood, at least since I've become an adult and am able to know what is appropriate behavior from a doctor, um, like I haven't had any doctors not be good. Um, I do quite frequently go with friends and other people to their doctor's appointments to be the uh white cis appearing guy sitting in the corner so that the doctors will actually listen to them. Because just me sitting in the same room uh skyrockets the amount that the doctors pay attention and actually take what they're saying into account. And I hate that me sitting in the corner helps so much, but it does. It because it shouldn't. They
Right.
should just listen to the people instead of having to have someone sit in the corner so that they actually care about their patients and do their job correctly.
Yeah. Something I would like to bring up that I read on one of the Facebook comments, and I was actually curious as well. So Christine, I love that. Now I'm going to apply that saying of everything in my life is like a shoe, and if it doesn't fit, I don't want it. So thank you.
You're
Um,
welcome.
but for those who have limited access to physicians or neurologists for various reasons, what solution or advice would you give to them if their neurologist or their physician is not giving them the best care, but it's their only option?
Ooh,
Um,
I've been there. Nick, you want to take this one? You've been in the big cities, right?
I would suggest to look in local resources for, well, let's start off here. You know, if you're in a hospital setting, everyone has the right to a patient advocate in the hospital, right? Let's establish that if you are in a setting where you in the hospital where you feel like you're being mistreated, or you know there's an issue with your medical team, everyone has the right to a patient advocate. There should be many resources in local states in your areas that you can check into. I would look into like the ombudsmans, and check out those resources and what you can do, but also understand that everyone has a supervisor. Everyone should have an HR department as well. And you know, I'm very firm believer of, you know, having a conversation, being, you know, demanding respect, setting boundaries, like I said before, with your medical team. But if they do continue to not respect you, then of course, you know, escalate it.
Thank you. And I think, Christine, you wanted to add to that.
I I love this because after I think I've had probably 22 neurologists. I think that's about right. I mean, overlapping testings, things like that. I've had big city care. I've had urban complexes and named after people and massive infusion rooms and warm blankets and ORs, or, you know, something that they're just plugging you in with and going, you have an upper respiratory infection and a UTI. Don't worry about it that you lost your eyeball. You know, there are so many things that I think it comes to knowing yourself and knowing when something is wrong. And that is very important. Now, if you don't have access to that, if it's transportation, times are limited. Let's not all, you know, say there's a whole bunch out there. Unicorn doctors are very rare. Okay. You're going to find more horses than zebras and more zebras than unicorns. Know what you're looking at, know why you're going, keep your appointments, and make sure you become friends with their staff because their staff are the ones that are going to tell you the skinny on what's going down, what's new in there. And if you've got the best PA or other staff members, congratulate them and appreciate them and tell them you're part of your team. And don't be afraid to add mental health care because depression is the number one comorbidity or co-indicator of MS. And I've lived a long time without all those cares. So instead of looking at urban versus rural, we really could be looking at palliative care in our entire communities, the gaps in which we do not get that we need. So we don't have to rely on neurologists so much. We don't have to funnel into one visit. Now, if you can tell me how that one works, I'll give you the $10 I got. But
River?
Mostly bring someone else in to advocate for you and with you. 'Cause like I was saying earlier, just having someone else in the room tends to get, at, at least in my experience, tends to get the person better care because there's someone else there to help hold the doctor accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that really is what it is it falls down to accountability. If it's just one person who's already anxious and stressed because they're dealing with this whole huge life issue that's affecting every aspect of their life, and there's another person in the room who is calm and collected and paying attention, it, they're more likely to hold the doctor accountable. And a lot of people will recognize that and behave better.
Yeah. And that person can also help you to recollect some of the questions you may have had. And if you
Mhm.
forgot, or if you're reporting like a symptom or something changed in your daily routine, having that person can just be a little gentle reminder of, hey, remember you were going to bring this up. So,
Yep. I've
yes.
definitely done that in appointments.
Yeah. I think that's having, and it just mentally helps to have a support system with you at these daunting
Yeah,
appointments where you're getting a
that as
bunch
well.
of
Yeah.
information thrown.
they give you paper on the tables. Write your questions down, and when they answer them, take your pen out and write it down and take it with you. You've paid that much money. The least they can owe you is your medical history, what they said.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
crazy with your care. They'll pay attention to you. If you're paying attention, they'll pay attention. If not,
You can also ask to audio record appointments.
mhm.
And depending on the state, the rules are a little different. So like definitely look that up and see what like the rules and laws are for that. But you can ask to audio record your appointments on your phone or whatever it is. So you have a copy of exactly what was said.
Yeah. That's a great suggestion. That way you can always just play it back at the speed you need to. And when you have the time and capacity mentally to listen to all those answers and dissect them as you need to, or share them with another healthcare provider or a relative that may be in the healthcare field.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to use that one too. Thank you.
Yeah, me
You're welcome.
too.
Well, this has been lovely, but unfortunately, we are nearing the hour. And before I send everybody off, I would love if you guys could just go around and give one piece of advice for the rest of this year or the rest of this month to anybody listening.
Remember
you're
to love
first.
yourself.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was saying remember to love yourself on top of everything else. I You're the person you have to live the rest of your life with. Remember to love that person.
Christine.
I have 4 rules that have helped me deal with years of new surprises. And I can't say that they're mine, but I learned them in a book. And one is learn ways to remain calm. 2 is to remain calm and find new methods in things that trigger you. Because you're going to get triggered in appointments. You're going to have some things that are sticking up. If you leave without medical, if you have MS and don't have medical PTSD by the time you get done, I don't know where you've been. You know, to be honest with yourself and others, even about the ways you've had to cope or having to cope with this monumental change in your life. And always find ways to grow, evolve, and prosper in those ways that only you know what's best for you. And we're here for a good time, not a long time. So make the most of it.
Nick.
Yeah, I would definitely say, what Christine and River said are awesome, but I want to echo River for a second. Well, love yourself, care for yourself, don't forget those self-care days, don't forget, access to therapy, right? Don't forget that you matter, and echoing Christine, like, your body better than anyone else does, if you're experiencing a symptom, talk about it, you know. Um, this disease is hard. Don't give up. Being LGBTQ in itself is, tough enough. We face enough in this country, and added stress of a chronic illness in itself, and especially neuroimmune like MS, it takes a toll on someone's mental health, their physical health, their entire lives at times. So don't forget to hold space for yourself. Find that support group, that support community that is kind and loving and supportive of you. Um, and yeah, find what works for you. What works for everyone else may not work for you, you know? So yeah, don't forget that. Love yourself. Be kind to you.
Thank you. That was all great advice. And yeah, I am a full supporter of self-care days. So thank you for the reminder. I think I need one soon.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of our time. So if you've missed any part of this conference, it has been recorded and is available through the MS Focus Facebook page and our YouTube channel. You can reply to the registration email if you have any questions on how to access the recording or to sign up for our newsletter for all our upcoming free events. The next teleconference we have is for this Thursday, June 26th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern with Dr. Aaron Boster. He's going to be presenting his Ask the MS Expert. So bring all your MS related questions and he will answer them for you in a very speedy manner. Additionally, we have one more event honoring National Pride Month on Monday, June 30th at 6 p.m. Eastern with Dr. William Conte. And he's going to be discussing the LGBTQ plus health disparities within MS. So some of the topics that the panelists discussed today will go further into detail with Dr. Conte. As you leave the conference today, a survey will appear on your screen. Please take a moment. It takes about 30 seconds to answer that survey, maybe a minute. And it gives us the feedback that we need to make sure that we're bringing you the programs most relatable and relevant to you all. Our sincerest thanks to all the attendees for your participation, both on Zoom and on Facebook, and especially to Nick, River, and Christine. Thank you for taking the time out on this Tuesday and sharing your experiences with us and providing all that wisdom. I think it's relatable not only to the LGBTQ plus community, to our MS community, and to just anybody listening. So I really do appreciate it. And once again, thank you to Genentech for the support that they gave in this event. Anything else any of you would like to say as I just thank Genentech with this slide? Any
Yeah.
parting words of goodbye?
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Gentech as well, because they um, actually were part of the reason why I was actually able to receive my first dose of my DMT. So thank you to Genentech as well.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thank you for having us. Thank you for
Yeah.
very much. It's been great.
Thank you
Yeah.
again for coming back this year. We really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening.
You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.